Hello, my name is Abby Scargill and I am a marketing recruitment specialist for Nestlé Academy.
Hi, I am Poppy Anscombe, a second year IT apprentice who's really passionate about finding new ways to help people realise their potential.
Myself and Poppy are really excited to invite you to join our first Nestlé Academy podcast. In our series, we will be providing you with an authentic insight into our company culture and various opportunities.
Chatting with our Academy members, including apprentices and graduates, we will explore a range of topics and themes that we believe will really support you to understand your options and make a career decision that is right for you.
For our first conversation, we are very lucky to be joined by supply chain apprentices Jess, Joe, and Phoebe, who will help us, including myself, understand what supply chain is and have the opportunity to share their own experiences of what it is really like to be an apprentice at Nestlé. So let's get started. Jess, would you be able to provide a little introduction to our listeners?
Hi, I'm Jess Wills. I'm 21 years old and I started my supply chain apprenticeship in 2019, so I'm currently in my second year. I'd say that my favourite Nestle product is condensed milk. I think it's massively underrated. I use it in baking a lot to make fudge, and I think it's also really nice on toast, which might sound a bit weird, but you should definitely try it.
Oh my god, on toast! That's such a good
It
idea.
is so nice.
My gosh, I'm with you on condensed milk. I make fudge because they've got a recipe on the tin.
It's so good to see people baking and cooking during lockdown. But yeah, if you want to send any goodies my way, they'd be very much appreciated. So, Joe, how about you?
Yeah, no problem. My name is Joe Hughes. I joined the Nestlé Supply Chain Apprenticeship Scheme in 2018. I'm in my final year now. I've done 3 roles. I started work in customer service, then moved into the intermarket team where I looked at deep sea export and logistics, and I am now in the customer facing supply chain team working with the value retailers. My favourite Nestlé product would have to be Orange Matchmakers. I think I could happily sit and eat a whole box of them.
That's a good choice. I feel like they're underrated, but they're so good. What about you, Phoebe? Last but not least.
Hi, my name's Phoebe Leroyd. I'm 20 years old. I've just started the supply chain apprenticeship scheme in 2020. So this is my first year. So I am the newbie of this group, but I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm really feeling as one of the team. And my favourite Nestle product would have to be a white chocolate Kit Kat Chunky. I believe Kit Kat Chunkies are the elite form of a Kit Kat.
Can't argue with that. More chocolate.
You know it, yeah.
Thank you, guys. So, Joe, could you give an overview of what supply chain is? Because I'm sure a lot of the listeners today, and myself included, don't fully understand the scope of it and the importance of supply chain.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to just start by saying that if you're listening and you don't know what a supply chain is, that's absolutely fine. When I applied to do this scheme, I didn't really know what it was either. Um, every business fundamentally has a supply chain. The supply chain is the backbone of the business. The sales team do the selling, the marketing team design the new products and make them for the sales team to sell, and the supply chain are in charge of execution and delivery and making sure that the products get from the farm to the fork effectively and are available on the shelves for the consumers. So the main sections of a supply chain are starting with procurement, then working up into supply planning and demand planning. So planning your production and factory cycles, and then you get into the project management side of it and the customer relationships, customer service, and the customer facing supply chain teams. It's massively important just to ensure that you can have the products available for the consumers that the sales teams and the marketing teams have designed and sold. Um, Supply chain, really, really fast paced, seemed really exciting. Lots more different functions within that and lots more scope to go and do different things. For example, I didn't think at any point that I'd be shipping Kit Kats to the furthest reach of the globe and to all different countries, 181 different countries we ship Kit Kats to. So it's all the different exciting bits that are far out of scope of some of the other functions of the business that make supply chain more exciting. And it's ever changing as well and massively impacted by real world things like Brexit and COVID.
What's that been like adapting to COVID?
You had the challenges that came with COVID as well as learning a new ways of working entirely from the ground up. we also then managed to deliver in April our biggest logistical month to date. So given that we we managed to do that in a pandemic, it's quite impressive and shows the resilience of the teams.
It's very impressive, not just quite. I mean, Phoebe, you joined during the pandemic, so what's that start been like for you?
It's been 1 week in the office, 1 week at home. So I've been able to get a bit more of a hands-on experience as much as you can, COVID limiting, to liaise with some of my team and actually meet them in person. On my first week that I was actually in the office, I met the wonderful Jess, who was really lovely and showed me all the ropes as well. But yeah, I think it's definitely just trying to get that work-life balance and trying to communicate as effectively as possible without actually being able to see people, which I think everyone took for granted before COVID happened.
Do you feel like the business has supported you during this big transition?
Definitely. I've been supported massively. I can't thank our supply chain apprentice champion enough, Mariana. She's lovely. She's made the effort to speak to us all and really get us involved and checking up on us. Our line managers, without a doubt, are there for every need that we have, making sure we're settled both working in the office and from home, and who's best to contact within the team when we've got a certain query, because they all have like specialist skill sets, and who's better to go to get that key understanding to actually know the process.
Oh, that's great to know that you've had that level of support and hopefully continue to have that level of support. But if we go back now, what led you down the path of an apprenticeship?
I decided to look into apprenticeship schemes after I'd been a supervisor at a local company for like 2 years after I finished education at 18. I realised I had more to offer and had a bigger potential, but I just didn't know kind of how to go into a different role, as most of the time nowadays you need experience. So I found out through the government's website on apprenticeship schemes, which is really handy because it shows you everything that's still valid and what else there is out there. And so I'd never considered an apprenticeship before till then, but I really wish I had. You put in so much to like the end goals for the year, and you are a really valued employee. But yeah, like I really wish I'd known about it earlier, because I would have took different options with my further education from doing my GCSEs.
And Jess, was this a similar experience for you?
Yeah, I'd agree with Phoebe in the way that I do wish that I'd found out about apprenticeships sooner. I decided to do A levels because in my head I was going to be going to university because it was what all my friends were doing, and I didn't really see that there were other options out there. It wasn't until I started doing my A levels that I realised I don't really want to be studying for another 4 years on top of that and not getting into the working world and getting proper valuable work experience. But I also didn't want to end up in a job that didn't challenge me or provide me with like the development opportunities that I wanted. So the thought of not having education scared me, but the thought of not starting work for another 4 years scared me just as much, which is why I came to the conclusion that apprenticeships are probably the best way to go, because you'll end up with a qualification at the end of it, but you're also working and getting the work experience that you need that will set you up for the future.
And Jess, how did you keep up to date with the opportunities that companies were offering?
I followed like their social media pages, and it meant that I got like regular updates on the opportunities that they had coming up and could begin applying for them.
Yeah, definitely. And they'll also share upcoming events if you want a little bit more information before you make that step into applying somewhere. So let's learn a little bit more about supply chain, because I know that you all do different jobs even though you're in the same function. So, Jess, could you give a summary of your responsibilities?
So I work in T-Hub at the minute, which is the transportation hub who are responsible for managing transports within Europe. So at the minute, it's just Nestlé to Nestlé shipments, but these are obviously carried out by third-party hauliers. And after they've carried out a shipment, it's up to me within the finance team to make sure that they're paid. So basically, the way I do it is through a weekly billing process where each week the transports that were carried out the week before are sent out to hauliers so that they're able to check the prices. So it's not just a case of saying, oh, well, the haulier thinks they're owed this, so let's give them to it. So there's quite a lot of investigation involved, and speaking to obviously other parts of the team to make sure that we're all aligned and the right money's going out. So it's quite exciting, and it's great because I end up speaking to hauliers from all across Europe. So I can't speak any foreign languages, and I wish I did. It would have been great for this role, but it still is great to speak to people from other countries and obviously hear how it is for them working in environments that we have at the minute. And I feel like I'm learning a lot on it. So yeah, a great year for me.
Is that similar for you, Joe, or do you have different responsibilities?
My role's quite different to Jess's. It's quite unique in its nature, to be fair. It's so I'm the customer-based coordinator for value retail customers within Nestlé, and basically what that means is I work in the customer-facing supply chain department, who effectively bridge the gap between sales and operational supply chain. The customer-based element of my role at the moment is not happening due to COVID, and it's a shame really, because it's the main reason I applied to do this role, and it's the reason I really wanted to get involved with this, is that you would regularly have customer meetings in their head offices around the country and speak with them directly about what's been going on, and work together to achieve forecasts and deliver different kind of operational goals. So we have something that we agree each year with the companies called a JBP, which is a joint business plan, which is basically how we outline our strategy with them for the next year. So my role really is stakeholdering externally and internally, and making sure that we can deliver as much as we can against what sales are selling to the customers, and keep those relationships strong. Probably the most unique part about my specific role is there's been customer facing supply chain CBCs and teams for about 25 years, going into Tesco and some of the big malt customers. But the role I'm doing is focused on Poundland and Aldi and B&M. So it's kind of the up and coming value retail customers. And they've not had this before. This is the second year of them having that resource. So it's really quite groundbreaking in the sense that you are building those relationships that didn't previously exist, and you're setting the bar for the expectations. And so it's very exciting, but it's very different in how it operates day to day. It's not your conventional 9 to 5.
I know you've had experience in different functions, so do you have a preference?
Yeah, again, that's a tough question. I think I really liked the rigidity of an operational role, so I did the customer service role to start with, which was very much you log in at 8:30 or 9 and log off at 4:30 or 5 every day, and there was a set list of tasks you needed to do. And that's really good, and it develops your skills kind of within the business and your business acumen and things. But I wanted to then be more in control of managing my own time, which the customer facing role gives you that scope to plan your own time and your weeks and things. So I don't know if I necessarily prefer one or the other. I'd like a blended mix of both.
And Jess, is there anything that surprised you about supply chain?
You can end up doing stuff that's sort of outside of the job itself, and you do get stretched to manage your time yourself and do stuff that isn't part of your day to day, which I found really exciting. And I wasn't really expecting it when I first joined supply chain, because I guess with the closed mind I had when I first started, I thought supply chain's just sort of, it's to do with the factories, it's day to day.
Could you give an example of any other opportunities that you've had or an upcoming project you'll be involved with?
Yeah, so I've got a new one coming up, actually, a project that I've just found out about, which is really exciting. But I've just been told that I'm actually moving into a team. It's a load compliance team, and they're working on sort of getting through all the issues that we're seeing with Brexit at the minute, because obviously it's much harder to get through borders now and everything to do with that. So I'm actually going to be involved in trying to coordinate between like the intermarket T-Hub itself, and then coordinating that with hauliers so that they know where they stand and sort of help them get shipments across smoothly, because it's obviously much more of a challenge now than it has been in the past. As chaotic as it might be, I'm going to learn so much, and the fact that opportunities like this are being given to apprentices who have only been sort of working 1, 2, maximum 3 years, I think that's really great.
Definitely. And Joe, what's been the most surprising thing to you?
I think the most surprising thing about supply chain that you realise when you've worked in it, as a consumer, when I'm going into the shops and buying anything that's on the shelves, you realise how much work it actually takes to get one product onto the shelves, and you just have the utmost respect for everybody that's working at those companies around the world to make that happen and deliver it. If you've not experienced that before, you just go into the shops and buy things and don't really think about where it comes from. You just take it for granted, really. And probably one of the most complex processes, getting it from, as I referred to earlier, the farm to fork cycle and getting it onto the shelf, especially with some things, the carbon footprint behind things and how they travel around the world before they actually get to your shelf. I think it's it's a good reality check.
So, Joe, what's your favourite part about Nestlé as a business?
Nestlé is the biggest food and drinks distributor in the world and manufacturer of food and drinks as well, that you get a massive amount of exposure to different stakeholders internally and externally. In terms of the leadership at Nestlé, it's very different to some other companies that are competitors directly to us, in the sense that you're only ever kind of 5 or 6 degrees of separation away from the top CEOs and people running the business from a global level. And there's much more of a kind of bottom up ethos in terms of progressing forward and starting new initiatives. So you, whatever level you are within the business, whatever kind of rung of the ladder that you sat on, you have the ability to bring really meaningful ideas and projects to fruition, and you listened to no matter of role or level or kind of seniority within the business, new eyes, for a want of a better word, on solutions and problems that have faced the business before. I think as well, really leading the way and pioneering the way in terms of sustainability going into 2021. Throughout 2020, they invested over 3 billion Swiss francs in new processes and policies to tackle climate change and to improve our sustainable packaging and sourcing. And it's the right thing to do, and it's really refreshing to see that a big company is actually doing that and taking those steps.
Definitely, and I think at Nestlé, doing the right thing is at the heart of our culture. So every decision we make, we need to be doing it with the right intentions. What is the right thing to do? And I think that affects every single function, and it plays a really important part on how we are supporting not only our employees but also our community and our planet.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, Jess, what is it about the working environment that has supported you the most?
Yeah, I just think Nestlé's work environment on a whole is just fantastic, because they really care about making sure that people want to go to work, and it's not just a place where you go sit at a desk, do the job and go home. But they've got a gym, so they care a lot about employee well-being. You can go on lunch breaks throughout the day, or you can go after work, so it's there for you whenever you need it to use free of charge. There's a lot of people that maybe can't get to a gym, they don't feel comfortable signing up for one, or it's just an extra cost that we'd rather not incur. The fact that as a workplace they provide it for you, I think, is really great. They also make sure that there's lots of volunteering opportunities available. I know when I first started at Nestlé and I was already going off to a fair share warehouse and spending the day there, going out and distributing food to people who really needed it. And I just remember thinking, like, I'm so glad this is the company that I'm working for, because already I'm giving back, and I'd only just started, so that felt really great to do. And you knew that you were helping people that really needed it, so it was fulfilling, but also great to give up a bit of your time and do something to give back to a community. There's also a Pets at Work scheme, which I found really exciting, because I absolutely love animals. And I'm not allowed a dog myself at home, so it was nice to be able to go into the office and people can bring in their dogs. I never thought I'd be going into an office where if you look around the corner there's someone with their dog. It's just a really different environment. I'm really grateful that I'm working in somewhere so unique, where you get up and you're excited to go into work.
I really agree with you there. It was really exciting seeing dogs all the time. It
I miss it.
definitely boosts your mood.
It did.
So, Phoebe, what's your favourite part about being an apprentice but in supply chain?
And it's the fact that you are valued as much as any other employee, and you're given the same opportunities, if not more, as you are pushed to network and explore all roles and functions within supply chain. You get to explore 3 different roles over the 3 years. So it really gives you a better outlook as to this whole fast-moving consumer good industry, and what there is available and what you can actually personally achieve by the end of it, because you push yourself to do things that you never thought you'd be comfortable doing, putting yourself out there to be involved in loads of different activities that are going on, whether that's promoting apprenticeship schemes like this, or actually promoting a new process that you found makes life working easier for people within the industry. So I'd really say you are pushed to the limits, but in the best way possible, because you really surprise yourself.
Have you got any advice for any of our listeners today regarding their next steps?
When you're between 16 and 18, I think there's a lot of pressure on you to decide what you want to do next. And often the most common suggestion is going to university, and you can get quite easily funneled into doing that, even if you're not necessarily passionate about a subject or a course. The flip side of that is if you're not passionate about one of those subject areas, apprenticeships are fantastic. I was in that position that I've just described where I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. I was 18, everybody else was applying to go to university, and all I wanted to do was work for a company and not get into loads of debt. Message off the back of that is there's plenty of other opportunities out there, even if your school or sixth form isn't shouting home about them. Go out, have a look, see what there is, listen to resources like this, and make a decision that works for you.
My advice for anyone thinking about what to do next would just be not to worry, because there are so many options out there, and I know it can be a really challenging time, and people are putting pressures on you. You're putting pressure on yourself to try and figure out where you need to go. But at the end of the day, some people end up in their 30s and 40s and then figure out what it is they want to do with their lives. You don't need to know when you're 18 exactly what you want to do the rest of your future. And like I said, there are a lot of options out there. Within Nestlé alone, there's so many different apprenticeship and grad schemes. And on top of that, I'd say don't let rejection get you down, because I did apply for a different scheme at Nestlé before I joined the supply chain apprenticeship, and I was rejected from that one. And it can be really hard to take rejection. Just take on board the comments that you get given and try and do what you can with it to obviously make yourself a bit stronger, get some new skills, and come back fighting again. Because I'm so glad I didn't let the first rejection stop me from trying to get into Nestlé, because now that I'm in, I'm so glad that I did try that second time. And then the last thing I'd probably say is just don't feel obliged to follow the crowd. Like Joe said, uni is a great option for people that know where they want to go, and it does require a university degree to get there. So I would never ever slate universities, but don't feel like you just have to go because everyone else is, and it's the easier option just to follow your mates. Apprenticeships do sometimes get seen as sort of the easier option, and you'll just end up making teas and coffees, but it's not the case. It takes a lot of skill to manage a job and also keep education on the side of it. So I think it takes a lot of courage to actually start an apprenticeship and see it all the way through, and get obviously your qualification at the end of it. It takes a lot of time management. There's commitment to both work and education. So I think anyone who does do an apprenticeship and gets to the end of it, I think that's a massive achievement.
You're absolutely right. And what I've taken away from the advice that you've both given is not to restrict yourself or limit yourself to what you've heard or what you believe the right career path is. There's so many different routes. And as a recruiter, it's really interesting to see all the different backgrounds that have come through our programs. It shows that we are inclusive, and that you need to open the doors for yourself and believe in your own abilities. What are your motivations? What are your strengths? And make a decision that's right for you in something that you're passionate about, because that's how you're really going to thrive on the job.
Yeah, I agree, Abby. It's really exciting to hear about all the opportunities within supply chain and where it can take you over the course of the apprenticeship. And it's clearly a very diverse and dynamic environment to ensure that products meet consumer expectations, but also with ethical considerations.
I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Jess, Joe, and Phoebe. It's been a really insightful conversation, and I've learned so much about supply chain that I didn't already know, and I hope that's been the same for our listeners as well. If this has encouraged you to click apply, you can do so through our website, which is www.nestleacademy.co.uk. It's here you can find out all about Nestlé Academy and also our available apprenticeships. If you're still wanting to find out more, interact with our apprentices and check out our available opportunities, we have our first virtual careers fair coming up for National Apprenticeship Week on the 11th of February. To register and secure your place, you can find all our links across our social media channels, or you can email me, which is abby.scargill@uk.nestle.com. If you do want to find out more about our application process or the supply chain function, you can find all the contacts on the back of the supply chain newsletter. It's a really interesting read as well, with lots of case studies to explore. I know it's a difficult time for a lot of you, catching up on learning curriculum, probably got a lot of screen fatigue, so I understand and appreciate the time that you've taken out to hear from us. If you do have any topics of interest that you'd like us to cover, please reach out to us. But in the meantime, have a lovely rest of your day or evening, and we hope to have you back for our second episode, where we will be joined by new guest speakers. I will finish with a quote that we stand by in the Academy from Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself.
Everyone else is already taken."